Yeah, but I think we'll start anyway. I suggest we start anyway, and these two will join us then in a minute. Both of them know Bootcamp very well, so because in the beginning I will say something about Bootcamp. Maria is only with us shortly, but with Synapticon for much longer indirectly, as you might imagine. So good morning, welcome everyone. I hope you found your way well up here to the vineyards of Esslingen. So the company exists now for more than 10 years, and from the beginning we have many international colleagues. So the very first colleague that we hired was a guy from India who graduated in Texas and that we brought with a blue card to Gröbingen back then, which was our first headquarters. So it's a small village in the Swabian mountains. And I just realized that many might not be entirely aware that Stuttgart is actually a wine place. Manfred coming from Bruchsal, I'm not sure, closer to more wine. It's probably not perfectly accepted that Stuttgart is a wine city, but it is, like half a wine city. And Esslingen is very much actually a wine town. I'll say something more about this location actually in a second. Bootcamp this year, Bootcamp 23. I wanted to say something about a bootcamp, the bootcamp culture that we established. So it's a vital, definitely the most iconic piece of our unique Synapticon company culture, I think. Even that a couple of years we didn't manage to do it, and especially the years before last year during the pandemic, we were of course blocked to do it. And last year we had a super intensive one. So some of you didn't experience this, but most of you did. So that was a 4-day event, unusually long. I think the maximum before that was 3 days. So we this time make it a bit more normal, and let's see what we can bring up next year. I think I shared that we had some struggles actually planning something this year because the venues were super stuffed, and we didn't want to do the same as last year. So Bootcamp, it's that moment in the year when we gather to get to know each other better, to learn from each other, and also to show each other why it's great to be a part of Synapticon. And we do this by basically celebrating our passions in this event. And you might know the situation, so talking a little bit about the venue here, and also the one tomorrow, you might that situation when you're somewhere on your own, so alone, and you discover a new place that you love. At least this is happening to me often, maybe because of business trips and so on, where I'm usually on my own and not with family and friends. Sometimes with some of you friends, so to say, but rarely. And you somehow have this thought you want to share the beauty of this place and this moment at some point with your family and friends. As you basically think about, okay, and at some point I will bring them here. The location of this year's bootcamp today and tomorrow, basically these were two places that I discovered in recent years, based on some occasions, and I greatly enjoyed them. And basically I had a very similar thought, like in these places where I say, okay, at some point I want to bring family and friends here. I was here, and I was where we will go tomorrow. And for each of these places, I thought, okay, at some point I will bring Synapticons here because it's a great place to do an event and to have fun. Basically very similar vibes than when thinking of your loved ones and friends, basically, and associate them with a great place to be and to do something and spend some time together. We're here in this freshly revamped venue of a winery. So it's a very traditional and deeply historic place of wine in Esslingen and in Stuttgart. So Esslingen is a super old town, actually. I don't know how many thousand years old. I should have looked it up basically to educate you better. But it's I think a much older place than Stuttgart itself, actually. And with that connected is Esslingen, probably also this winery where the wine farmers are coming together to produce wine. So it's basically a union of several private and also partially public communities that are farming wine. And they at some point decided to invest and to create this place. And I think it's just such an amazing setting for the ones who are connected online. You will see it later in the footage. I expect even from above the sky, in a bird's eye view, you will be able to experience the place a bit later. So we're in the middle of the vineyards and looking down to, in industrial Stuttgart at the bottom. But the trees are covering that part actually, and we see the green hills on the other side and the vineyards on the other side, and it's beautiful weather today, luckily. The other one you will experience tomorrow, and that is more for fun, less for tranquility. But let's start. So last year I started hooking the Keynote into one of our creeds. You should be aware of the creed. What the one that I picked last year was no fear, because I think it's the most fundamental, and I had this approach basically, or I saw how to connect it to learning basically. And you remember I said basically overcoming fear starts with learning and daring, so to say. Then basically in this theme, without really knowing, because Michael was mostly organizing this, I didn't know how much this creed will be connected to the rest of the program, actually, that we would then experience the next couple of days. So we've been there in Austria, in area 47, for the ones who don't know it and haven't been with us last year. So this is a mecca of outdoor activity craziness, basically. So where you can do any kind of extreme and outdoor sports, and you might have seen the video, I guess you did. First thing that happened, they shot me off this cushion here because there was an event happening that was called Blob the Boss, I think. Among other things, we used this device here. There was a competition. There will be competitions tomorrow. Maybe tomorrow will be boring compared to that, I don't know, but it will be intense too, I can tell you. That was exciting. So we went down and we needed to throw a ball into a very tiny goal, actually. And that looked like this.
Oh God.
I think that's Simon Nesper. He was a successful shooter. So he was doing very well. I remember he was shooting several goals. He was some of the finalists. Most of us actually looked more like that. So that's pretty much how each of us felt. So pretty much random, out of control thing somehow. So try to throw a ball. But I remember also there was one guy who made a much better figure, actually. Look at this man. Look at this performance. But you know what? But you know what? It could have been Hillary's last moment in life. Hillary, this could have been your last moment and very last picture. You know, because it turned out when he hit the water that he cannot swim. So he took the first creed very literal, and that is amazing. Yeah, I think we paid appreciation to this. And we all didn't know, you know, and then something was wrong, yeah, and he survived. So that was great. That was great teamwork in the end, and great courage, Hillary. Amazing. Probably the absolute limit to which you should put your no fear attitude. It was actually meant more for less, dangerous things in life. Okay, so which one did I pick this time? After last year, the most fundamental and the first one, I thought this time probably I picked maybe the most stupid looking at the first sight. Yeah, so go beyond what is this? I mean, laugh, and especially then this citation. We attach a citation to each of these creeds, and I need to say, actually, if some of you have an idea for a better citation for Go Beyond, you can win the prize. Because to start at the top and work your way up, it's somehow funny, but a little bit too, how to say, a little bit too casual to be serious. Okay, but what does that mean? What could be behind that than simply just having high ambitions and making the next step and going beyond where others went. I want to reflect this time on a different perspective on Go Beyond and a different perspective on Synapticon, and kind of reflect on what is uniquely Synapticon, what is making Synapticon unique, phrase it in the way you want. Starting from one very core perspective, actually, that is fundamental to the business and what Synapticon is doing. So when you pick your ambition, your passion, basically your purpose, your work, you could decide to work on these things, for example. So a couple of cool end products, like robot arms, so that even the chancellor is visiting. The lady here is former German Chancellor Angela Merkel. So a lot of prestige. This robot got it won the German industry prize and made KUKA very angry, actually, and so on. And then here these guys with solar motors. You might have not been aware, but Germany had some kind of a solar Tesla that even went public. So must have been super amazing to work for this company, I can imagine. And to work on the car, imagine how cool is that? Then some robo kitchens. Coincidentally, I've got two here, Karakuri, just because they called it the British Tesla of kitchen and food robotics. And that is APME from Munich, also a kitchen robotics startup that we share one investor with, actually. And then there was Jibo, that's a couple of years ago. You might recall that was a revolutionary robot for the home. So Cynthia Brazil, an absolute, how to say, a super famous person from MIT in robotics, founded this company. And I remember having been in New York, visiting some investors there on a tour together with a German Chamber of Commerce. And one of the investors was invested in these and so on. And he said, okay, this is the thing to be in robotics and so on. And when I was presenting Synapticon, it was like, okay, so what are you doing in robotics? And he didn't understand the word, what we're doing. And he didn't invest, obviously. But it also wasn't the right investor for us. So it was not really a pitch to get them invest, but I could see how really, it was difficult to comprehend for him and to at all understand what we're doing. And that's one of many service robots. That's from Munich, Robotize. They did, among other things, some robots for hotel and hospital deliveries. Now, unfortunately, they're all dead. They don't exist anymore. Some of them just very, very recently, actually, went away. So again, you can choose to work on an end product, on something that is kind of directly exciting and easy to understand, and then bring one particular thing to this world that may or may not change the world. Or you can choose to make sure that all of them are successful instead, leading over to actually a core motivation that we always had in the founder team at Synapticon that is really foundational for Synapticon, is to enable. Basically, instead we were thinking about, do we want to just create a robot? We would have had tons of ideas for robots, and it would be super exciting to bring a service robot to the market or whatever, an industrial robot. But we somehow always felt about this as not the wisest choice, because you do one thing and it's either a success or not. And you only bring this one thing to the world. One of 50 robot arms, for example, one of 20 delivery robots, 30 security robots, or whatever, or you invent a new category, maybe, and then you brought this robot to the world. Instead, it's much more fascinating to enable tons of products. So that has been a fundamental motivation always for us. Actually, I didn't include Synapticon 1.0 examples. So you will find a lot of super successful startups, by the way, from the first phase of Synapticon, then that went to market, like eGym, for example. eGym is revolutionizing the market of fitness machines. And we designed all their machines, as was our very first customer, bootstrapping project back then, and they were super successful. Or take Futsua, for example, also an early project that we did, super successful, even now having some heritage into Pinion. So early on, we enabled the successful ones, or we made our contribution to make these individual products successful, and the impact is much greater than working on an individual one. So yeah, talking about our purpose. So this is really the original and the purpose that was always there throughout the Synapticon story, even that we changed what we did over time to a certain degree, especially the one significant pivot in 2017 when we decided to focus on industrial motion control only. It's still connected to what was driving us back then. So in the very early days, basically, we had some idols, I nearly want to say, when starting Synapticon. So kind of some, if you want, mascots for this purpose, for this ambition, for this identification, to be an enabling factor, a strongly enabling factor, rather than just a individual creator, so to say, of one thing. So, do you know who this guy is? Anybody knows William Shockley? What did he do? Yeah, maybe you can identify this. Mr. Shockley, exactly. So he was the first to start a lab in what we call today Silicon Valley. So before that, in Silicon Valley, they were planting oranges and other things, yeah, but there was no tech there. Shockley, for whatever reason, decided to put his semiconductor lab there. And that was really when semiconductors, were a crazy thing, something wild. Nobody knew really what this is, actually. Diodes, probably the first step, and then transistors and so on. And he was a Nobel Prize carrier, how do you say? But he was a bad manager. He treated all these people, the smartest minds from the US and probably around the globe, who went there to work for this guy who had a Nobel Prize and started this lab, which was recognized in research academia as an an incubator for what is coming. So it was a hot place. The guy was hot, but he was a bad boss, and that brought these 8 gentlemen. How do you pronounce this properly? Traders. The traitorous 8. So that's a common name that these guys have. This made them leave after a year that they started working for William Shockley, because they just didn't see how this is further evolving, and they started Fairchild Semiconductor. This is logo up there. So 8 founders of Fairchild, and that was kind of the first permutation of Shockley. And then many such, evolutionary steps happened. And this is also why Fairchild is called the $1 trillion startup. Whole Silicon Valley, whole tech, you could say, what is driving our world today predominantly was built on what this guy started, and especially what these guys started. Because after they founded Fairchild, they went on to found Intel, to found National Semiconductor, to found Intersil, AMD. So 4 of these guys started these companies, and then engineers working for these companies went on to start all the other companies, up to the point that Snapchat was founded, and whatever, and actually, so talking about Snapchat, this we were fascinated by these good old times in Silicon Valley, by these core enabling moments. So real hard tech that was changing something, and not the next app that lets you send some pictures that then disappear and so on. So we were fascinated and driven by the story, and this ever since actually I think has been a fundamental DNA of Synapticon, to enable. And it's also official. I changed the grammar of this because I realized the grammar was stupid. We had enable robotic or robot progression or robotics progression or something like this. Enable robotics progress. Yeah. So you could say more shy, help robots progress quicker, help robotics develop, the robotics industry, the robotic revolution to take place. That has been our translation. So we looked, okay, what is an industry that will be big going forward, and what is fascinating technically? What will be the next computer, smartphone, car? And we thought robots will be, and worked on creating something, enabling something fundamental for robotics. And that's our purpose, our why. Yeah, last year I was elaborating on Simon Sinek's golden circle with why, how, and what. So instead of purpose, you could also say that's Synapticon's why. Now, 10 years forward, what impact does this have? And kind of reflecting on, okay, from a very, very high level, because when you pick working for a company, and especially if you're a member of Generation Y and Generation Z, but maybe even before that, you're concerned about the impact of your work. And of course, we should be all concerned about the impact of our everyday life and of our work, make most out of the time that we invest into work. So let's take a look at what, at least I think, and I hope you agree, is Synapticon's impact on a very high level. The first item is, robotics. You might reflect on, okay, what is robotics? Anything good for the world? Yeah. So we push out some electronics. Okay, they could be environmentally problematic, more stuff harming the environment in the end, and robots taking workplaces, I don't know, being dangerous for humans and so on. So you can look at it in a way that robotics are not necessarily an answer for our problems these days, but I think especially in the very recent years, it becomes so obvious that humanity will have a big problem. So not only individual countries, meantime, whole humanity will have a problem without automation and without robotics supporting us, because we're aging. We have other demographic aspects that are making it more difficult to have enough people work, create value, and basically carry on and develop the wealth that we've reached in individual countries, but also as a whole, as humanity. So, phrased differently, with what we do, we help quite substantially to compensate the demographic change, which is so problematic for individual countries, but basically for entire humanity. Then, talking about the environment, and both on a basically material aspect, but also on a energy aspect, maximize efficiency. This is really what Synapticon engineering always has been about. Integrated motion is an efficiency story. I think the best example is delivered by what we do for AGVs. So this is all about material efficiency and energy efficiency, basically. Material efficiency, you see this in this animation. Yeah, we're making a lot of crap disappear. You need less boxes, you need less stuff. You have space for more batteries, which is helpful for the efficiency and lifetime of an AGV. I hope this will circle through. Yeah. But besides this material efficiency, which is obvious, at least based on this animation, the energy efficiency that we bring to AGV is super impressive for the manufacturers, and is the other reason why we are having such a great traction. Material efficiency, by the way, is we are saving the BOM for safety quite substantially. That's a key driver as well, not to be skipped. So by reducing the components, you already have a lot less standby power consumption. And then with model predictive deadbeat and all the other things that we do in the drive itself, we're reducing the power consumption compared to simpler drives and less efficient drives, and basically all the stack of disturbance rejection and so on. That also helps in the end, saving energy. Yeah, this is good for the AGV manufacturers because their AGVs, they have much longer use cycles. They need to charge less often, so that's great for the manufacturers and the users, because that's all they want. AGVs that run and not AGVs that charge. And cheaper, and in the end, less environmentally impactful machines. Then there is another aspect. I think we went through this during one update recently, but that we evangelize low voltage automation now hits the situation where renewable energies are becoming more and more relevant and also more and more common. For example, on factory roofs, solar panels generate electricity at between 30 and 50 volt DC. That's handy, right? We work up to 60 volt DC. So you can save in perspective, and that is of course very much an Integro story. And by the way, also a circular story, but particularly Integro that is changing what is happening underneath this roof here in the factory, quite substantially changing from higher voltage AC to lower voltage DC. That means, in perspective, with a Synapticon style automation, a lot of power supplies and power conversion can be avoided, and a lot of losses can be avoided. So pushing extra low voltage in industry for automation greatly helps the energy transition as well. And that's an aspect that we really just recently discovered, which I think is amazing and probably more important than we so far realized. Yeah, so we could probably talk half a day about all different kinds of aspects about efficiency and the details of that. But then, as you know, because we were celebrating it the right way recently, we also do ensure human safety. Now, of course, functional safety in the factory, very technically on the level that we do it today, fundamentally a safe torque off and now the safe motion control. But in perspective, it's much more than that, making the workplace safer, making factories safer. You will see with Andrea's part of the keynote that we're moving beyond, going beyond industrial applications in the future. And I mean, there is this momentum about humanoid robots now and a vision that at some point there will be more humanoids on the planet than humans, just to do all the work and sustain productivity. And ultimately, you know, think about us on this planet. Probably this planet will not be enough at some point anymore for us to survive. And Mars probably will also not be a solution, which is so nice to be. So ultimately, I mean, this is super visionary, but it's something that I believe in. It's kind of, you know, it's obvious when you give it enough time, of course. So it's just a question of time that we will ultimately travel and colonize an Earth-like planet somewhere in the galaxy. Again, I'm sure it will happen, but we can argue on how long this will take, actually, because so far we're working on Mars. But just imagine, yeah, at some point it will become necessary, and then there might be a very limiting factor, which is the human lifetime. And we probably don't want to humans to really live a lot longer than 100 or 150 years, or maybe 200 years. At some point, we will need to decide what is an acceptable lifetime, because also lifetime will be extended. Maybe a problem solving itself, but it's also such a dangerous place. You know, traveling interstellar is hyper dangerous. So you might think I turned crazy up here talking about interstellar travel and humanity going there, but no. Just so what I want to say, there are places also terrestrially, which are too dangerous for humans. And especially in, you know, catastrophe situations and so on. So this is a much more graspable situation where there is stuff to be done that is just far too dangerous for humans. And these robots will be around us everywhere. So really a key thing. And I don't have any picture or slide to elaborate on this aspect, that these machines, of course, can be super dangerous for humans as well. But it's a common theme, yeah, the war between humans and the machines. So we really need to make sure that these robots will have that positronic brain that Asimov was basically ideating. So that was a brain that was kind of certified and solidified to keep these three rules. Yeah, always serve the human, never hurt a human, and the third one I forgot. It's less important. But the positronic brain is that thing that every robot had in order to make sure it's safe and it's doing something good and not something bad. Otherwise, we will have the robot war. The best piece of art that I can recommend, in case you haven't seen it, is the Animatrix, the animated version of the Matrix. there is a link in the presentation to watch it. Maybe a little bit devastating scenes, but also super inspiring, and I think mind expanding, so that you also confidently can talk about crazy things like I did here. So these three areas I really see where we are having a substantial impact, and I mean, so far still on a small scale, for sure. Synapticon so far is a small company. We've got few customers, but this is not the end. This is only the humble beginning. Synapticon, an SOMANET chip, ultimately, or whatever kind of device in every robot axis. That is ultimately our goal, ever has been and still is. We need to work hard on that. Leica agrees. Leica has a beautiful name, by the way, when we're talking about space flight here. So, very bold, we could say we help save humanity. If you really are looking for a big purpose, a big impact, you can derive that from what we're doing. You could say this is far-fetched. You can be more directly inspired. Pick it, but I think it's true. Difference. So yeah, let's talk a little bit about what Synapticon is doing different. And I mean, you might know that or realize, you might imagine that I'm often presenting Synapticon. I'm often explaining to someone what is Synapticon, what are we doing. And oftentimes, there is this question, okay, so what are you doing different, and how far? And when they understand what we are doing different, integrated motion and our technology and everything, they're wondering, okay, how comes, we are doing it so different? How did we get to make it so different? And I'd like to elaborate on these aspects a little bit. Again, three. Our brand advisor Uwe will love it that I have always three, because he defined the three, how do you say, the Dreiklang, it's hard to be translated. We always need to have three things, then our brand will be strong, but it's just coincidence. The briefing, we had a very different briefing. So, briefing is what your customer tells you to do, so to say. We're having a very different approach, and we're having something that scales very, very differently than any other company in our industry. I'll elaborate on each of these, not with the boxes only, but with some diagrams. So imagine there is this TMCC, that's our universal competitor, the traditional motion control company. Pick whichever you want, a more traditional or less traditional one. And they usually were started by a very abstract customer briefing. So the problem they were solving is to create a box that does this, in between the grid and a motor somewhere in the factory. I need something that converts this electricity coming out of the socket, so for example 400 volt AC, or in big factories much higher, to something that turns this motor. That is the purpose of a servo drive. Very, very electrical engineer briefing. So what these companies did, what TMCC is doing, or the TMCCs of this world are doing, they were electrical engineers that designed boxes that did that. Nice. So customer asked for this box. Okay, we created this box. Unfortunately, this box needs to have some cabinets and then a lot of wiring. Who cares? But it does the job. So, and this is why all TMCCs are mostly doing boxes that do that, and not more than that. They are not thinking beyond this problem. With very, very few exceptions. Synapticon had a very, very different briefing when starting. We had the challenge, and also the self-rendered challenge by our customers directly, but also because we saw this challenge that product designers in robotics have to solve the situation at these axes. So the integration problem. We are much more integration problem driven than power conversion driven, so to say, like all the other servo drive companies here. So we are thinking about what we do from the product perspective, and not just from the electrical aspect that this device has to do. And this is determining the product extremely strongly, and explains our completely different approach to what is a motion control device. Now, there are many competing TMCCs, and what is their approach when they go to market? So how do they win customers? What do they do in the industry? I try to explain this without too much words by this diagram. So they take a little bit of money and a little bit of time to create a solution for a given customer problem. So there's a customer, a factory owner, operator, or a machine builder. They want to create a solution for a given customer problem. So there's a customer, a factory owner, operator, or a machine builder. They want to create a solution for a given customer problem. So there's a customer, a factory owner, operator, or a machine builder. They and they have some problem. And I realize I'm already talking too long, I guess. So we'll completely smash the schedule. So there's this problem that this machine builder or factory operator have, and then all of these TMCCs, they're jumping on them and try to, fight for the win. They try to solve this problem. They take a little bit of money and a little bit of time to solve it and randomly create new products doing so. So they don't sit down and think basically, okay, so what our product should do so that it solves, as startup and venture capital people say, 1 billion people's problem. No, they see this customer as a problem. Okay, I want to help this customer. I do something for them. Often they only develop products when there is a customer who will buy it ultimately. And then they're competing with each other like crazy about this. And of course, they cannot invest a lot into each solution, into each product for that particular product, customer, because they don't know if another customer will also need it or not. So that is happening all the time in automation and in motion control. Now, Synapticon has a very, very different approach. Maybe because we're a tech startup and we have this basic motivation to solve 1 billion people's problem. Yeah. So again, different briefing from a shareholder standpoint. So, but also we just, when you're venture finance, you don't have the time to look for a customer and then make a small solution and organically grow by customer by customer by customer, like all our competitors basically did, who are 30, 40, 50 years old and much bigger companies, but only within that time based on such organic growth. So we needed to invent one product, especially since the pivot and since we took venture capital, one product that solves many customers' problem without modifications, without engineering. So we took much more money than is normal to be invested into one single product in industry, and quite a bit more time, unfortunately. Of course, it would be great if this all could be done quicker. We all would be more happy about that. But yeah, what you invest more money into, you also need to invest more time into. But what we effectively did, we were compressing and grinding and polishing a diamond versus just a thing that then creates great value for a lot of customers. So they all have the same problem, and we identified this problem and created the best solution for it so that nobody can get around with it with a, out of the box, quickly created solution. So where Circulo fits, no Elmo, no RLS Renishaw, no Kendrion, no Maya. So you name all these component vendors, server drives, encoders, brakes, they just don't have a chance anymore. The only thing that has a chance is that the customer decides to do it themselves. But all these other components, they're out because the solution is so compelling compared to these. Again, you could decide to do it yourself. That might make some sense. And this is what we're ultimately fighting against. But it doesn't make any sense to use any of the components that were created in this type of approach. That's the last one, different scale. So the TMCC, we'll call it the Acme, whatever. So the TMCC is our Acme, has also a different go-to-market approach. So they have all these products and were created over the time. So all different kinds of products that solve all different kinds of problems of the customers. Like, I mean, look at Elmo, at least, I don't know, 300 products, how many are these? More, yeah? So, of course, they're serving a bigger bandwidth, basically, you could say. And some of our salespeople always said, look, we only have these few products. How should we sell them when the others have so many products to solve all different kinds of problems? Actually, it's different, yeah? We find this single place, and then it's a very easy sale. While, yes, of course, you can go after all different kinds of customers and problems, but then you also need to have a sales organization with a lot of salespeople and a lot of application engineers that take care of an overlookable number of customers, actually. But it's many more customers, of course, that you need to directly serve, because each of them are just doing something small. So they're just building 10 or 50 machines a year. They just run one factory, and you need to have a team that serves them all the time, basically. They're not buying hundreds, thousands, 10,000s of products a year automatically. Very, very few of these customers do that. Most of them are buying just small quantities. So you have a lot of products in this traditional approach, and you have a lot of salespeople and application engineers who need to go throughout the world and sell to these. Our customers do this. And this is making our approach very, very different. So we've got our few products. If you count the integrated motion devices only, Circulo and now Integro. And we've got a small sales organization. It's not only because we're young and small, that's the other reason, but it's also because we don't need so much of this, because we're only selling serving a couple of customers that are selling then to a huge customer bases. I mean, think about, for example, Nidec, biggest motor manufacturer in the world. Global sales organizations, think of Schneider, one of the biggest automation platform vendors. They have huge sales organizations. It will take us, I don't know how long, to build this up. We would need to get $1 billion investment to just hire them for a year, and then we're running out of money or whatever. So not really a totally different story, but we can reach all these customers with our approach, with a much more leaner go-to-market, with few sales folks who are selling to a Schneider, who are selling to a Nidec, who are selling to a Cole Morgan, or to a robot manufacturer, then sells to all of these customers through their large sales organizations, global sales organizations. And that is our strategy, especially in the beginning, that makes our scale and then our commercial impact much, much stronger. So these are things that we rarely talk about. And I think it's, at least, when gradually getting into this, it was super eye-opening for myself to realize actually how different we are. And I thought it's time to pencil this down and to share with you also for own identification and understanding why it's special and why it's cool to work here and why there is such a great potential. And then there is another way to explain what we're doing, by the way. And with this, I'm leading over to a request that we had, talking a little bit about the product roadmap beyond Integro. You could also explain what Synapticon does in this way. It's just a little bit cheesy, but actually it's very true. Remember what happened to computers? We went from mainframes to personal computers to the smartphone, if you will. Of course, personal computer is still there, but that's a super powerful computer that has much more than this guy here. I think this, obviously, we all know, caused an immense revolution to our everyday lives. And we think, especially when looking at the GMC market, so what the Integro world is meeting, automation is pretty much there. Yeah, it's a world with boxes, bulky boxes, cables, and so on and stuff. Yeah, somehow you can realize everything, but it's like this. And what we bring, especially with Integro, to the GMC world is quite a bit like the smartphone for the world of IT. It's changing everything to a big degree. We will talk about this in one of the tracks today. So with that, and again, time, that will be funny. Exactly. So Andrea will talk about what's next, a small part actually about what's next, because we all know, okay, we're working on Integro, and even this thing still is about to be finished. So even for Circulo, we have additions and so on. But the question is, okay, what's ahead? We conquered industrial robotics, fixed and mobile, first step. With Integro, we are conquering the market that we call GMC, General Motion Control, the machinery motion control market. Not robots, but more complex robots. And you might also wonder, okay, our purpose, enable robotics progress. Robotics is meant in a more abstract way, of course. A machine is a robot in the end. A factory is a robot producing something in the end. So that's the logic of that. So what's next? Robotics again. Going out of the factories, service robots, humanoid robots. They're becoming a thing now, and we want to be there when these products are created. And Andrea will show you one aspect of what we will do for that.